It's very early in the morning as I'm writing this script. I had to stop scrolling through Instagram Reels because I got emotionally bombed by a Minecraft nostalgia video. You know, the ones that take you all the way back when you were in middle school or early high school, playing on some random server with your friends. The days you poured into Sky Wars only to never actually get any good. The times you got banned from Hypixel for months after continuing to construct a baby's album cover over and over and over again on Build Battle. And yes, people kept voting for it, so you didn't stop even when the ban was lifted. The parasocial relationships you developed with your favorite Let's Player on YouTube who played all of the modded versions of the game that you weren't allowed to download. For some reason, Instagram and TikTok have this obsession with nostalgia, and it really hits hard for me when anything Minecraft related pops up. All of the videos are the same. Simple, very little editing. It's just a reminder of the days gone by. And they hit you right in the feels with a song from the Volume Beta soundtrack. Man, those songs are so good. Anyway, let's talk about what defines a champion. The 21st century has seen some pretty consistent blue blood dominance. If you consider UConn a blue blood program like I do, 15 of the 24 titles since 2000 have actually been won by college basketball's cream of the crop. The other winners, while not blue blood in status, constructed teams that shaped up similarly to what we'd expect from the best programs around. So what defines a champion? What does it take to climb the most chaotic and unpredictable postseason mountain in all of sports? We're going to look at a few different things that are pretty much essentials in making a title run. While every single detail might not be necessary to win a national championship, possessing most of these qualities are almost certain to get a team who owns nearly all of them over the hump. If you care anything about winning your March Madness pool, you've probably come across KenPom while doing some research for your bracket. While other analytical tools have popped into existence over the last several years, KenPom has remained tried and true when it comes to picking a champion. Historically speaking, there's a couple of different statistical criteria that nearly every single national champion since 2000 has hit. Despite the tournament at large being extremely unpredictable and erratic, KenPom has gotten the champion nearly down to a science. Just need to have two things. Make sure you have a really good offense and a really good defense. How does KenPom quantify that? Well, through adjusted offensive and defensive efficiency. Raw offensive and defensive efficiency are the number of points that a team scores and allows per 100 possessions. KenPom's formula is a lot more complicated than that, adjusting both metrics for the quality of opposing defenses, offenses, game location, and when each game was played. Yes, even one of the sport's leading analytical models can't help but have a little recency bias. KenPom's threshold for title winners has been pretty simple. Rank 21st or higher in adjusted offensive efficiency and 31st or higher in adjusted defensive efficiency. Only 4 teams since 2001 have failed to meet that criteria. None of them have failed to meet both. This is the foundation for all championships. You have to be efficient on both ends of the floor. Considering the margin for error is so incredibly thin, this makes a lot of sense. Take Duke's 3 titles, for instance. In 2001, the Blue Devils ranked second in both offensive and defensive efficiency. Led by Jay Williams, Shane Battier, Carlos Boozer, and Mike Dunleavy, the Blue Devils steamrolled their way to a title, winning every game by double digits. Their pace, outside shooting, and NBA talent proved to be too much for anyone that dared step in their way. 2010 featured some of the same with some tighter results. John Shire, Kyle Singler, the Plumlee brothers, it all proved to be just a little too much for Gordon Hayward and the Butler Bulldogs, who almost pulled it off with what would have been one of the worst offenses to win a title in the 21st century. 2015 Duke played an extremely tight rotation, took away both the three-point and free throw line from their opponents, and applied serious pressure through one of the nation's best offenses. The most interesting thing about 2015 is that the Blue Devils ranked 37th in defense before the tournament, and they held all 6 of their opponents to 63 points or less and finished 11th on KenPom. Obviously, almost every team here was extremely efficient, at least once they got to March. 2004 UConn, 2005 UNC, 2006 Florida, 2012 Kentucky, 2019 Virginia, and 2024 UConn are some of the best examples of this. But what if you weren't efficient on offense and defense? What if you weren't as perfect as some of the other teams in the tournament? In a single elimination bracket, when things are getting tight, when the ball isn't going in the hole, or the defense just can't seem to catch a break, there's usually one thing a team will do. They'll look to their star. There's a few teams on this list that weren't particularly efficient, at least relative to their championship counterparts, and all of them were led by star players. 2011 UConn's sprint to the national title will forever go down as one of the greatest postseason runs in college basketball history. While yes, they had a solid defense, the offense leaned on their ability to grab offensive rebounds because, well, they usually couldn't hit shots the first time down the floor. And when they were making shots, it was usually coming from one source: Kemba Walker. Let's set the stage here. The Huskies had closed the regular season 21-9, had lost 4 of their last 5 games, and then they easily dispatched DePaul and Georgetown in the Big East tournament before squaring off against KenPom top 5 Pitt. The Panthers scored 74 points, nearly 10 points above what UConn gave up on average that season, shot 72% from 3, 55% from the floor, and none of it mattered. Why? Because Walker did this.
On McGee with 4. Kemba Walker, step back, Walker, cardiac Kemba, does it again, UConn wins at the buzzer!
Walker followed that up with a 33-point performance in an overtime win over Syracuse before scoring 19 in a 69-66 thriller over Louisville in the Big East title game. The Huskies were the first and only team in Big East history to win 5 tournament games in 5 consecutive days to secure the title. That's 26 points per game for Walker to win a title in a way that nobody had ever before. And he was just getting started. Kemba scored 141 points in 6 games during the NCAA tournament, and UConn needed every single one of them. What's even more impressive than his scoring averages was the percentage of his team's production that he made up. Walker not only led UConn in scoring every single game, but he made up at least 30% of his team's total points in 5 of those contests. Here you see the percentage of points every national champion's leading scorer contributed to the team during their respective runs. Without Walker, every other contributor averages 23.4%, with no player scoring over 31% of their team's points in any given season. Then there's Walker, sitting at 35.3%. We've not seen anyone carry a team to a championship quite like he did. Also notice just how big players like Williams and Dixon were to Duke and Maryland in 2001 and 2002. Outside of these big 3, we've not really seen a star like Walker carry a team to a title since Shabazz Napier actually starred in UConn's 2011 backcourt alongside Walker, but Napier wouldn't see another postseason until his senior year, where he'd averaged 21.2 points per game over 6 tournament games for the 7th-seeded Huskies. They toppled 5 straight Ken Pom top 20 opponents on their way to yet another national championship. At just 6'1", Napier did a little bit of everything for UConn. He shot over 40% from 3, boasted a 30.8% assist rate, the team's second best defensive rebound percentage, second best true shooting percentage among UConn starters, and led the team in free throw percentage, free throw attempts, steal percentage, and percentage of possessions used. He's one of my favorite players of all time, and his 2014 NCAA Tournament was nothing short of a mixtape. It's kind of crazy that the Huskies had 2 titles in the span of just 4 seasons with 2 different coaches and 2 different stars leading the way. However, one massive thing separated the 2014 squad from the 2011 squad, and it wasn't an advanced statistic or an undersized human highlight reel of a guard. It was actually something the entire team possessed. It's widely agreed upon that experience is a major factor when it comes to March Madness, specifically in the backcourt. Napier in 2014 UConn had tons of experience across the board, ranking 12th nationally in average player experience. And the duo of Napier and Boatwright was incredibly clutch. Yes, Shabazz was the star and leader of the team, but as Napier went, Boatwright was right there with him, contributing as a solid secondary option. The Huskies had some younger options in the front court, all of which were pretty wiry, but the sharpshooting duo of DeAndre Daniels and Niles Giffey were also very impactful in the postseason. This was a team led by a crop of really good upperclassmen that all came together and executed against some tough competition, specifically when things weren't going right on the offensive end. Take a look at our scatter plot again. You'll notice 2014 UConn's pre-tournament defenses all the way down here among the cream of the crop. Not quite as elite as some of the other top-tier defenses here, but still among the best, and their offense is all the way up here. This is the biggest outlier among national championship teams since 2001, sitting at 57th nationally in adjusted offensive efficiency. The Huskies could shoot the lights out of the ball on the perimeter, sure, but inside the arc, it was a bit of a different story. They also struggled to grab second-chance opportunities, they didn't get to the line very often, and their turnover numbers weren't phenomenal. Most of these statistics were still in the top third nationally, but you've got to understand that we aren't looking for above average. We're looking for the elite. Stats so good that even the magic of the tournament can't quite shake them. But when the numbers aren't all necessarily in your favor, you lean on your experience. The Huskies sure did. There are a lot of examples of experience leading the way to a title. 2021 Baylor, 2010 Duke, 2005 North Carolina, but no team, and I mean no team, defined experience better than the 2007 Florida Gators. Billy Donovan and the Gators won the title in 2006. The team was hyper-efficient on both sides of the ball and breezed through each game en route to a championship. Florida started 4 sophomores in Corey Brewer, Torian Green, Joakim Noah, and Al Horford. They had 1 junior in Lee Humphrey, and Walter Hodge and Chris Richard came off the bench. 5 of these guys would go on to get drafted to play in the NBA, 3 of them in the first round. You'd think with talent like that across the board, most of these guys would bail. They'd take their title and go make their money in the NBA. They didn't. None of them did. They all decided to run it back. The team started off hot, going 24-2 before losing 3 out of their last 5 to some pretty mid-competition. And then they hit cruise control. Everyone had already been there before. Everyone already knew what was at stake. They got stops, hit threes, got to the line, and won back-to-back titles. Pretty simple. But it's not always that easy, right? Most teams don't have a plethora of experience, much less an entire starting 5 that had already won a championship. Some teams aren't the most efficient or the most experienced in the world, and if they are, they're almost guaranteed to run into another team that's just as good, if not better, than them on paper. It's hard to be perfect for 6 straight games, so when the numbers aren't quite perfect, there's no Kemba Walker, and the entire starting 5 hasn't already won a title, what's it take to win? Sometimes you just have to get a little hot. Something interesting about the scatter plot that we've been using this entire time is it's not post-tournament data. The adjusted offensive and defensive efficiencies here are not from after March Madness, but before. If you're wondering what the national champions looked like statistically after their postseason run, well, they'd look like this. Notice how dramatically these teams shift towards the bottom here, especially on defense. 18 teams got better defensively, and the other 5 either didn't regress or had nearly unnoticeable change. The average change between pre- and post-tournament offensive efficiency is 3.04 spots, but it's 7.87 spots on defense. This can be seen a little easier here. It might be cliche, but defense does in fact win championships, especially over the last decade. The 75th percentile here includes 6 different teams that I believe show why simply getting hot goes a long way in March. 2003 Syracuse, 2006 Florida, 2009 North Carolina, 2014 UConn, 2015 Duke, and 2021 Baylor. There's a 7th team that we'll get to talk about at the end of the video that didn't quite make the cutoff, but should still be included for reasons we'll get to. 2003 Syracuse came into the field as the 21st best team in the country according to KenPom. They had the 4th worst defense and the 3rd worst offense of our pre-tournament sample. The Orange jumped 17 spots in adjusted defensive efficiency because of 3 games in the tournament where they clamped down and held their opponent to 65 points or fewer. What ended up winning them the national title, though, was offense. Syracuse finished Big East play with a 49.9 effective field goal percentage. They shot 5.3% better than that during the tournament. Freshman phenom Carmelo Anthony had been the team's leading scorer throughout the run, and he did score 20 against Kansas in the national title, but Jerry McNamara was the one who lit up the Jayhawks during the first half. See, Syracuse as a team had only hit 6 or more threes once, all tournament long, before facing Kansas. McNamara had 6 triples in the first half.
Looks like he's going to take it to him and stand outside to the other freshman. McNamara with the 3. Going. McNamara. 3 again. And there's Anthony. Look at this shot. Oh, my goodness. He has unbelievable range effectively against them. Paulus in front of the baseline. McNamara again. McNamara. Off balance. I guess that wrist is really hurting him. Could have been going to the line for a 3-point play to shave it to 7. A calming effect here. Anthony with the ball. This is pretty calming too. McNamara with another 3, and he is moving in on the all-time title game 3-point.
Had it not been for the hot outside shooting of McNamara, Kansas would have won that title. Instead, we're talking about Cuse as one of the hottest title teams since 2001. We've already covered 2006 Florida, and while 2009 North Carolina, they, did improve dramatically on defense, they still boasted one of the nation's fastest and most efficient offenses that carried the way for them. 2014 UConn improved with Napier leading the charge, and 2015 Duke jumped a whopping 26 spots on defense after holding turning opponents to 56.3 points per game. But the 2021 Baylor Bears are one of the best teams on here. They took the 2nd biggest defensive leap of our sample and finished 4th in the country in turnover rate. But man, that offense was filthy, specifically in the national title game. Baylor versus Gonzaga was the best combined record in NCAA Tournament championship history, with the Bears at 27-2 and the Bulldogs at a perfect 31-0. I remember heading into this game, it seemed like everyone on social media had pretty much agreed that the Zags offense would be too much for the Bears to handle. The line was only 4.5, but for some reason to me, it felt a little bigger than that. I can't remember seeing anyone taking Baylor to win the title game, and as it turns out, Baylor's offense would be the one that had its moment in the sun. They got hot early, and they didn't slow down. There's one more team I'd like to mention to close things out. We've talked stats, stars, experience, and momentum. But there's one more run I'd like to take a look at that sort of encapsulates what a championship team looks like. It's one of my favorite title teams for so many different reasons. The 2015-16 Villanova Wildcats. They had everything. Top 15 offense and defense, experience, and one of the hottest tournament runs of all time. They didn't have a star per se, and if they did, it was Josh Hart, but even he didn't lead the team in percentage of points during the postseason. It was Archie Diacono. The only thing this team didn't do well was grab offensive rebounds. That's it. And in March, they didn't need them. Take a look at their offensive numbers before they got to the NCAA tournament. Above average shooting inside, outside, these are pretty good numbers. And then they got hot. I think it's important to put these numbers into context against the defenses that they played. By no means were the teams that they faced off against slouches on defense, but look, they weren't exactly juggernauts on defense either. Except for Kansas, who was the only team to hold Nova under 77 points the entire run. You can see just how good that Jayhawks defense was here, where they clearly held Nova down relative to their 5 other opponents. However, the offense needs to be put into context as well. These were the Division I averages in 2016 for effective field goal, 3-point field goal, and 2-point field goal percentages. The Wildcats blew that out of the water in just 6 games against above average 2 elite defenses. And no game proved that these Cats were different more than their blowout win in the Final Four versus Oklahoma. The Sooners had a top 20 offense and defense, something that 14 of our national champions since '01 had, by the way. They possessed a star in Buddy Hield and had improved considerably on defense during their run to the Final Four. They just ran into a buzzsaw. Nova went on a 36-5 run in the second half and punched their ticket to the national championship game via the largest blowout in Final Four history. That brings us to the title game, Villanova, North Carolina. Why is this my favorite title run of our sample? Well, the national championship showed us one more factor that needs to be discussed when talking about the NCAA tournament and its champions. The 2016 national championship game featured efficient, high-quality basketball from Villanova. The Tar Heels, who missed way too many opportunities inside, had to make shots from deep, and they did, shooting 64.7% from beyond the arc. It was a great back-and-forth game that culminated in 2 of the best moments in college basketball history. Carolina led 44-40 with 15:40 left in the second half before the Wildcats went on a 13-2 run that 5 different players contributed to. It gave them a 5-point lead with about 9.5 left, and they got up as much as 10 with 5 minutes left before Carolina went on a 7-2 run of their own, and then both teams missed some clutch free throws. Let's not worry about that. Page cut it to 3 with 1:30 to go, then a turnover, then down to 1, and then a foul to send Phil Booth to the line to make it a 3-point game with 35.7 seconds left. Marcus Page drove in, put up a layup, and much like the other 2-point shots UNC had taken all night, it rolled out. Nova almost had the rebound, but
Carolina fights for it and gets the putback.
Carolina fouls, Nova makes both free throws, and UNC needs a 3. They get one.
It's Page off balance. Puts it up. Yes! How did he do that? Ties the game with 4.7 seconds to go.
Timeout Villanova. The Tar Heels have come back after being down 10 points with little time remaining after Page nailed an improbable shot to tie the game. Lucky shot, right? Part of what makes childhood so special is the nostalgia that comes after. I started today talking about the nostalgia of Minecraft. It's about the things you built, the moments with friends, the creativity allowed through a simplistic yet beautiful experience. It feels like everyone has something unique to say about it. The soundtrack, however, hits a lot of people the same. It's a glance back, a return back to a moment in time where the weight of reality hadn't quite hit us yet. It's the same for me when it comes to this era of college basketball, where Villanova was dominating and the ACC actually meant something. This right here is a moment that will never be forgotten and is the biggest reason why people love March Madness. And it's the biggest reason why teams make it to the national championship. Sometimes, all it takes is a little bit of luck.
Gives it to Jenkins for the championship.